just want to create shapes in Photoshop which are more abstracted, and there is no shape tool that gives you that exact shape. For example, the hair in this particular instance, I think the best way to do something like this would be to use the pen tool. The pen tool is something that a lot of beginning students, graphic design students, anybody has a lot of trouble with at first. It's one of the best tools you can learn, especially for making logos, but it takes a while to learn. It takes practice. So I'm giving you a few weeks for this, and then there'll be plenty of other time throughout the semester to sort of practice. And I recommend you practice every week, and try to get better at it. You can use the polygonal lasso tool, which I've already showed you. That works fine for certain things. But if you really want precise curves, like we see here in the Wella Professionals logo, you want to use the pen tool. Okay, so I'm just going to click my history off and go to Window, Paths. Okay, the pen tool will, in Photoshop anyways, be associated with paths. And once you have that window up, I'm going to click on my transparent layer again, and I'm going to get rid of this shape I just made. Just delete it. So I'm working in a layer above the Wella's logo just for demonstration purposes, and I'm also going to trace what you're looking at on the screen just for demonstration purposes. But if you're making your own logo, you wouldn't necessarily be tracing. You would be making something that relates to what you're doing, although you could be tracing some other image just to kind of get started. Like maybe you did want to do wavy hair. You could trace this hair and then use the transform warp tool, for example, to make it different, kind of make it your own. And that's what graphic designers do anyways. They often, more often than not, they copy somebody else's idea and then change it enough where it's your own. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in pretty close, as close as you can where you can still see, and then choose the pen tool. It's P on your keyboard, and it's kind of down here on the tools panel. Pen tool P, click that. Okay, and then what you're going to see is this tool. Kind of looks like a pen a little bit, with a positive icon just next to it. And what you want to do first is it's a little bit like the polygonal lasso tool, in that if you click and then move the mouse and then click again, you've got 2 points in a straight line, and you can keep doing that, and then that'll be exactly like the polygonal lasso tool until you just close the selection. Whoops, I missed it at the end. But if you're going to do that, you might as well use the polygonal lasso tool. It's a lot easier because there's some extra steps with the pen tool. So actually I'm going to take my history window back because I want to go back in my history. Okay, but what I want to do is click, and then when you click on the second point, you do a click and drag, and then what you're doing is you're making a curve. Okay, the pen tool creates what's called Bezier curves. A Bezier curve is a handle which you can make shorter and longer, which affects the curve. Okay, I'm just holding down the mouse right now. I haven't let go yet. I clicked and I'm just holding the mouse down and moving my mouse around. Okay, and it also is a 360-degree wheel that you can rotate around, which will affect the curve as well. You see that? So handle long and short, and then turning the handle. So those are two factors. And then if you let go, you've made a curve. Okay, these were originally the Bezier was a French person who invented a way to plot curves and points in order to design for bending metal for cars. Okay, and and this is what he came up with. And it's a really good tool to make very precise curves, and normally you would use it in Illustrator, and you can make vector objects using the pen tool. But if you use it in Photoshop, you have to work with your paths, which are vector in nature, but you can also use those vector paths to just select whatever is on the layer that you have highlighted. Okay, I'll show you that in a second. So now what you want to do is convert the last point. If you leave your handle full the way it is now with two sides, you have less control over the path of the next curve. So watch what happens if I click over here. You see how it automatically does an S curve up towards that point like that? Or if I want to click here, it does the same thing. So if you leave the handles untouched, okay, if you don't convert the point, what you're gonna have is a function that the path it wants to follow what came previously. Okay, and sometimes you want to do that because you can get a really nice smooth curve out of it. But let's say you wanted to abruptly change course and do a straight line. You can't do that. If you leave the handles untouched, if you don't convert the point, it's automatically going to follow the path of the previous curve. So the way you convert the point is hover over it with your mouse until you see the negative symbol, and then press the Alt key, and when you do that you'll see like a little less than symbol. That's a convert path symbol, and with the Alt key selected, just click, and now you've only got one side of the handle showing. And what that allows you to do now, you can draw a straight line without having to curve it anywhere you want to go. Whoops. Or you can just have a little more control if you want to change the path, and do something like this. Okay, you're not locked into that previous path like that. Okay, so that's really important. More often than not, I think it's a good idea to convert that last point so you have a little more control. So now let's practice tracing one of these hair strands. I'm going to just delete the path I made for now. Okay, so again, you want to zoom in pretty far, and as far as you can, actually, probably is a good idea, and just aim right for the contour. So you click once, click and drag, and you see I'm just making a curve by my dragging the mouse until it conforms to the contour you want, and then release. Now this is a case where maybe I don't need to convert that path because the shape I'm tracing is already kind of an S curve. So actually I don't think so. Err on the side of converting the point. So I'm going to, with the Alt key selected, click that point and then do this in little chunks. You don't want to try to make your curves too big. I'm going to do this pretty fast. Whoops. And if you miss, you can just hit Control Z, undo, or go back in your history. And then if you want to, you see how I'm running out of room here, visible room, you can hold the spacebar down, and that automatically gives you a move tool where you can just click and drag and you're moving the canvas around. Okay, like this was a glove or a hand, moving everything around. It's really nice because then you don't have to go and click and drag the menu sliders. I really like that. Okay, and then when you release the spacebar, you're back to your pen tool. Okay, Alt key, click on that point to convert it. So I do that the vast majority of times, honestly. It gives you a lot more control. Another advantage of using the pen tool is once you have the path saved that you created using it, you could scale that path as large or small as you want it to without losing any image quality, because it is raster, okay? Or you can, like I said, simply use it as a selection tool, a very precise selection tool, which you're filling in with color then. Okay, I did this pretty quickly. I'm just going to round off this last point a little bit. So I've converted every point along the way here just to get a little more control. But again, sometimes you might not need to do that. So when your path is closed, go to your Paths window, Window Paths, and you're going to see a work path was automatically created. Double click that and you can name it and then hit OK. And now you have a path that you can choose to do different things with. One thing in the drop down of your Paths window arrow, click Make Selection, and you can choose to feather the ends if you want. A one feather end tends to give like a realistic look if you're going for something that you want to look more realistic, like a real hair strand or something. But if it's just a simplified shape, like for a logo, you probably don't need to feather it at all. But that's up to you. You can just put 0 and then OK. And now you have a selection. You see how it's selected, and then you can do it whatever you want with that. You can copy and paste into, or fill with a color. Let's say I want to fill it with just black. Go to Edit, Fill, Black, and hit OK. Deselect, Control D. Okay, so now you did the same thing as I just showed you a moment ago, where you traced it by hand, and except you use the pen tool to trace it. Okay, so that's one thing you can do to make shapes in Photoshop, which you can either make the entire logo in Photoshop, or you can just make parts, and then bring those parts into Publisher and then mix it together with maybe circle or square or other vector objects in Publisher, and also text in Publisher. You can use a combination. But if you were gonna well, before I show you that, let's say you wanted to make duplicates of this. Okay, click on the layer, and then in the layer drop down options, go to duplicate layer, hit OK, and now you've got a layer on top of it which is duplicated. Maybe you want to make this one a little bit slightly different. You can use the transform tool, the free transform tool, to scale it a little bit, rotate it. Maybe do it again, duplicate layer. Free transform. So now I've got 3 separate layers, each with a hair strand that I've modified just slightly differently. And that way, you can only transform, for example, one hair strand at a time. If they're all in the same layer, it would be something you'd have to do all at once. So let's say you were ready to save this so you could take it into Publisher. It's a raster object because I filled a color. Okay, so this isn't vector anymore. So the first thing you need to do is, when you're working, make sure it's the right size to begin with. So assuming this is the right size, I'm going to just crop, because you don't need all that extra space around it. And then click OK. And then you just save a ping like you normally would. Whoops. File. Save as. I'm sorry, I'm going to do it this way. File. Save for web. ping 24 with a transparency. Click Save, Navigate. I'm going to go to week 7. I'm going to call it hair. Click Save. And then if you open up Publisher, insert picture. There it is. Format. If you want to recolor, you can do that right here in Publisher. With your Picture Tools Format ribbon, go to Recolor, and they give you some basic choices. Or if you want more variations, you can choose any color you want. You can type in your build, either RGB or CMYK. Let's say I'm going to make it green. Hit OK. Now it's green. Isn't that cool?